This episode of the Beauté Industry Podcast was brought to you by Circuit Skin Australia, making skincare smarter for almost 2 decades. Hello and welcome to the Beauté Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauté Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauté Industry. Today my guest is Jennifer Byrne from the Australian Society of Dermal Clinicians. The ASDC was founded in 2000 to 2001 with the first graduates of the Bachelor of Health Science from Victoria University. Since then, the dermal therapy industry has experienced dramatic growth with the increasing popularity of non-surgical cosmetic treatments and clinics offering dermal therapy procedures across Australia. This continuing growth has highlighted the need for the ASDC to advocate for dermal clinicians nationally to maintain standards, integrity, and education within the industry and to promote evidence-based practice. Today, we talk to Chairperson Jennifer Byrne about the role of the ASDC, the benefits, and what it means to you to become a member. From the Australian Society of Dermal Clinicians, today we welcome Jennifer Byrne. Jennifer, welcome to the Beauté Industry Podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure to chat with you today. You may not know, but we start all of our episodes in the exact same way by finding out how our guests entered into the industry. And I would like to travel back in time and take a look at what that looks like for you.
Yeah, no, I'm worried. I guess it's one of those, I'm one of those people that I guess it was a little bit of a calling, but also fell into it. And it's a bit of a strange story when people hear where I came from. But I was always a fairly academic person at school. I really liked, studying biology, and I did physics and a few other things as well. But I really wanted to be a hairdresser my whole way through high school. Oh. But most of my teachers and my parents weren't too keen on that idea for one reason or another. And so I actually studied to be an architect for 4 years.
Wow.
But decided that I didn't really want to do that for the rest of my life. And it was fairly intense, I suppose. And the pressures of having to perform in front of clients and things as well. And I was very young and I hadn't travelled much or done any of those sorts of things. So I took some time off and I worked in retail for a little while. And then one day I saw an ad in the paper, and I was probably about 23 by this point. So, in terms of studying beauty therapy, I was considered quite mature age. But I saw an advert for Alabashay back then in Melbourne, and they were wanting, advertising their program. And I spoke to my mum and said, look, would you come along and have a look at this, with me? This is something I think I'd really like to do. And I absolutely fell in love with it. And I did it as a part-time student. So I had to study and, pay rent and do all those sorts of things, pay my bills. So it took me a little bit longer than the average person. So I did that for 2 years, but I loved it from day one. And really fell in love with the profession. I'd worked in that field for probably about 7 years all up. But even when I was at Alabashay back then, my principal at Alabashay told me that there was a program that had started up, it was very new back then, in dermal science. But I kind of just parked that in my brain. And I thought, well, I want to get out there and I work, and I want to get into doing all sorts of different things. And I worked in lots of different settings. I worked in medi spas and, traditional spas. I worked in little beauty therapy clinics. I became a bit of back then, things like Brazilian waxing was really new, and I became a bit of a Brazilian waxing guru for a while. So yeah, I did the full gamut. I wanted to get as much experience as I possibly could in all sorts of different settings. But I was also drawn to it too, because like most people, I think, that come to skin, I had a terrible skin condition when I was a teenager. So I had really bad cystic acne. And I was put on medication in my teens, and it really impacted me and a lot of my friends too, having acne and things like that. And I also came from a family where we get all the weird and wonderful rashes. So we always had eczema and psoriasis is in the family, and there's big risk of skin cancer history and those sorts of things as well. And I guess skin was always an interest for me as well from that perspective. And as I was working with clients in my beauty settings, I was often drawn to the complex cases, the people that did have the issues they didn't know how to fix. And so I got to a point where I thought I really need to know more, because I wanted to know more about how do I help with this. So I was doing a lot of referring off. There was only a certain amount I felt I could do. And so I was doing a lot of referring off. And also probably about that time was when a lot of these really new treatments were coming into the industry as well. So when I was a beauty therapist, IPL was brand new. This is, we're talking about 15, 20 years ago. And chemical peels and things were just starting to become more popular. And back then there was a hard, go hard, go home kind of peels, TCA and things like that. And I wanted to know more about how they worked, because I was a little bit too scared about doing that. So then I reinvestigated this degree I'd heard about and went off and studied that. So pretty much, so that's sort of how I got into dermal science. And then once I had studied that, again, it was like my whole universe opened. There was just so much more knowledge to know. And, I'm one of those people, when I think, you ask a little bit later, how do I, is continuing education important? And I'm one of those people that's never left. I went from, high school to doing, uni, to another program, and then I went and did postgrad. So after I did my dermal science, I wanted to know more about wound healing in particular. And so I went and did a postgrad in wound healing, and then I've gone on and started research degrees and things too. So, I think it's just that thirst for knowledge. I just feel like there's always something more to know, like everybody else, I think. That's kind of where I sort of got into it, yeah. And then, so now I guess I've never left uni too, so now I educate. So now I work as a lecturer at Victoria University, and my particular passions are chronic edema. So I teach into the areas of lymphedema, lipedema, wound healing, and I deal a lot with chronic disease. So how we can help with skin health in the areas of chronic disease management. It's such a huge area, and there's such a shortfall at the moment in healthcare for somebody that knows a lot about skin, and has the tools, like the wide range of tools to actually treat that. Yeah.
Wow, how cool is that? I love that. I mean, started out as a hairdresser, went to architecture, went to retail, come into beauty therapy. It's everywhere.
Been everywhere and done everything, yeah.
But destined to be in the service industry, I guess.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I guess, that thirst for knowledge as therapists, when we are training in beauty school, we don't know what we don't know. And all of a sudden, our world really opens up to all of these basic skin conditions. We learn about different hair types and hair stages. We learn about, muscles. We learn about physiology, anatomy, so many different things. And as you were saying, you got to this point where you're like, I need to know more. And I guess going down that dermal science pathway for you is where we kind of do that in our industry, which I'm so glad now, you were saying there, somebody told you about the degree. I'm glad now the degree is so well known where, it's not just somebody telling somebody about it. It's kind of like, okay, so you finished being a beauty therapist. If you want to continue, this is the automatic pathway you go down.
I think that's for me been one of the biggest changes that I've seen, is that it is so widely known about. Like, you can hop onto so many forums now and people are chatting about it, which is really nice. And also for me, of course, I studied at VU and I teach at VU, but for me, particularly within the association, it's been so important that there's been more choices in that. And the fact that there are now 3 different institutions that you can do it at, in different areas of Australia, is something that's been, really amazing and really wonderful for people to have that choice of different places they can go to, and, preferences for how they like to learn, or, where they want to go or how they want to do their clinical learning. And like I said, it's quite mainstream now. It is just a progression that some people want to go. It's another choice for what you might want to do with your careers, I suppose, as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So then tell me, you are the chairperson for ASDC. In your own words, what is ASDC for those who don't know?
Yeah, that's a big mouthful, actually, isn't it? Well, the Australian Society of Dermal Clinicians, we're really a network of dermal clinicians predominantly, and dermal therapists. And it's a network or a professional body specifically for representing us and advocating for us as well, in terms of increasing awareness within not only the aesthetics area, but also within the medical professions and also the government about, where it is we play a role and how we can assist. And particularly at the moment, the government, there's a big push, 10-year plan for integrating allied health and medicine a lot more, and they're focusing a lot more on preventative health and understanding that really prevention is so much better than cure. And, as we all know in skin, anyone who works in skin knows how important skin is, and it's just a reflection of what's happening on the inside. So yes, we play a big support and advocacy role, but also, the differentiation between, how these professions are starting to develop into different professions, really. So like I said, I started off as a beauty therapist, and once you become, you study dermal science, you do become something else, I suppose. And aesthetics is one area we can work in, but a lot of us work in different areas of health as well. So it's mainly it's a body representing us, advocating for us, supporting us, but also guiding industry as well. And I think you touched a little bit on that with sometimes you don't know what you don't know. There's some things in terms of scope of practice and some of the emerging things that are coming out, sometimes we don't realise that we don't know, and we're able to provide some sort of guidelines for that as well in terms of, where to, beauty services merging into more health services, I suppose, fit, and the sort of differentiation so that how we can, navigate, between all those different professions in terms of medical, health, beauty, those sorts of things as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that word, navigation, and also network between the two, because as we know, when we see a skin as a beauty therapist, we get very excited about all of the possibilities on how we can treat it and how we can recommend. But sometimes we also need to cap that excitement and go, do you know what? We might not be as skilled or as experienced as somebody else who can actually treat this a little bit better or perhaps differently with a little bit more knowledge. And it's so nice that, coming back to that word network, you've got this network of people who you can refer on to. And I feel like a dermal clinician or a dermal therapist really does have more of that allied health kind of aspect towards their qualification. Therefore, you guys are treating within your scope of practice, and a beauty therapist can assist up until a point. So it's really nice that you've got that language that you're able to, help the client further in the treatment room.
Yeah, we see ourselves really as a bridge between everything, really. And everyone has a place. So when we, I think the biggest thing for me as a teacher too, teaching people to make that transition, I suppose, to being dermal clinicians, is also to know that what we need to let go as well. And so in a lot of situations when I'm managing somebody with a chronic skin condition, my aim is not to keep them forever. Like in that state, you want them to, get a certain amount of skin healing and then refer back. So my network is to refer back to, my beauty therapist colleagues and peers, so that they will have the ongoing management and maintaining that skin health. But then, being the bridge to other things. So we, often recommend to lots of different allied health professionals, from dietetics to, movement, so that might be physio or sports exercise physiologist or, various different things. So we really are the bridge, trying to find out what does that client need in order for that improvement to happen. And then, where do we go from there? So really is about networking. Networks are really important.
And I love that word bridge as well. That's so very on point. Tell me then, how does one become the chair of such an association?
Yeah, again, that's one of those things I kind of fell into. I certainly didn't wake up morning and go, yes, that's the job I want to have. Especially during all these sorts of times with COVID, I always sit there and think, you don't want to be the Prime Minister today, do you? All those things. I've always, as a person, I think I'm somebody who, I have a problem-solving bent, I have a creative bent, and I like to network. So I think, there came a time in our development where we needed somebody who, is very collaborative, because of my networks, I suppose, working for the university too, I have an understanding of how boards work and what's needed to sort of develop the profession a bit. So I was actually headhunted. I was always a full member of the association. And very early on when I joined the association, I wanted to be on the committee, and until I realised how much work that really was. And then I went off and decided I want to have a bit of a career first. But yeah, so I think that's sort of where it was. I've got sort of passion for advocacy. I'm very passionate about what we do. and working together with everybody. I think the only way, I've got this saying that I tell my kids and things too, is like, if you want to go somewhere fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together.
I like that.
And that's the sort of person, yeah, that, you know, I am, and the sort of beliefs I have. So I think that's, at that time, I fitted, you know, or at this time, I fit what the ASDC need. And then, you know, somebody else will take over from me when the time comes to, you know, take us to the next stage as well.
After the break, Jen and I chat about the much needed topic of what regulation and standards look like for the professional aesthetic and beauty industry. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, if you are searching for a skincare brand to stock in your space, then you should look no further than Circuit Skin. The original skincare brand is back in Australia, bigger and better than ever before. With over 20 years of research and development, happy clients treating all concerns through ingredients which are considered through their earth-aware conscious ethics, Circuit Skin is a brand your retail offering and treatment menu is going to love. Promoting professional prescriptions by skincare specialists rather than selling online, Circuit Skin is the perfect combination of results meets relaxation in their signature eye-catching yet eco-friendly packaging. To find out more about why so many therapists and clients are loving the return of Circuit Skin via distribution of InMed Aesthetics, visit www.circuitskin, that's circuit with an s.com.au to take a look for yourself. Thank you so much to the team at InMed Aesthetics for making today's episode possible. And now back to Jen. Who can be a member of the ASDC? Because we have obviously a lot of different associations, and I think that was probably one of the biggest problems during COVID, is that there were too many voices and not a united voice.
Yep.
You know, in terms of membership, there are so many different sectors of our industry. There's beauty and aesthetics and spray tanning and cosmetic and tattooing and everything like that. What are you guys specifically looking for in your members?
Yep. Well, our full members are qualified dermal clinicians who have a bachelor degree. Yeah, and a bachelor degree specifically in, you know, we've called a couple of different things depending on where you study, but, you know, whether it's clinical aesthetics or it's dermal science, it's specifically in that specialisation of being a dermal clinician. So they're our full members. And then we have associate members who are our dermal therapists. And there's a few different pathways to becoming a dermal therapist. So that might be a beauty therapist that's gone on to do some postgraduate vocational training, specifically in dermal therapies, or they might have an accumulation of different certifications as well that would allow them to call themselves a dermal therapist. And then we have our industry membership, and that's pretty much everyone. We call it the Friends of the ASDC, really. So that's pretty much everybody who would like to know a little bit more about what it is to be a dermal clinician, or would like to network with dermal clinicians, or, you know, be in that sort of space. So that's, you know, industry reps from product companies. It's you know, beauty therapists that might not yet have that dermal therapy training as well. So it's pretty much everyone sort of falls into that category. Yeah, so I think it pretty much covers off everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, Friends of the ASDC. I didn't know that. So you've taught me something today as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of COVID, we were chatting just before, you know, I think it really highlighted and highlighted perhaps in a bit of a red color, some anger as well there from therapists and technicians who, you know, really saw or wanted to see a huge boost for change, for more standards and regulations in our industry. I'm interested to hear what kind of changes you've seen in the industry during 2020, because it was such an upside down year, and what do you envision to change in 2021? Because this conversation sparked where we all kind of went, actually, you're right. We do need more standards. We do need more regulations. So do you envision something happening fast, or do we have to take that long kind of far pathway, I guess, to get there?
Yeah. I think, yeah, definitely. I think in 2020, so many awful things came out of it in terms of, you know, it's been professionally and personally upheaving for everyone. I don't think anyone came out of it unscathed, but there was definitely silver linings. And for me, the biggest thing was that we all bonded over, you know, who knew we'd all bond over infection control?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think we all came, you know, all together and thought there are some things that transcend professional boundaries. And at the end of the day, you know, we all want the best outcomes and for people to maintain their health and, you know, to do good things. And so I think even seeing some of the the webinars and things that came across where all of us were able to sit down together and have some conversations, and we may not always agree, but I think that, the fact that we were able to have those conversations was something that was really good that came out of COVID. And those discussions are still continuing. And as you said, like, there's a lot of discussion around regulation and standards, and we're still having those discussions. It's kind of expanding out from there. So at the moment, there's obviously some conversations about laser. And, a lot of the professional bodies are, sort of willing to sort of come together and think, well, how do we approach this? Whether or not we can wait for the government to do that, I'd like to think, yes, that something would happen sooner than later. But I've been in this profession a long time, just like a lot of other people, and we've been talking about regulation since I started as a beauty therapist 20 years ago, and that hasn't quite happened yet. And that, there may be a stimulus that makes that happen really quickly. I would hate to think what that would be, though. So in the meantime, for me, it's really important, I'm starting to do a lot of work around, trying to really collaborate with those professional bodies to see if, we can come together and have some conversations about where does this all fit and develop some standards as well. Yeah, so I think that will come out of it. But I do think, though, that even despite, the industry feeling maybe we're not recognised in, what it is we actually do well, I think that that's also given us a forum to actually be heard to a certain degree, in terms of, at least, but I know that a lot of the health ministers would say, were saying to us that, you're very loud, there's a lot of you talking. But I think, probably the problem was we weren't able to focus that enough. And I think that's something that's going to change too. I think, we are seeing a lot of movement in that we are starting to focus that. And, the government only want to deal with a few, for them, it's easier if they just want to deal with a few bodies that represent a lot of people. And I'm hoping, as I know that we've all sort of fallen into that trap. Sometimes as individuals, we feel that, nothing's ever going to change and my voice doesn't matter. And so you kind of wander away from being part of a group and going off and doing your own thing, which, I'm hoping that kind of changes, and we realise that, even though it might not feel like you're doing anything by being part of something bigger, it's just a small, that your voice and being part of that actually provides more weight, I suppose, when we do try and advocate for people as well. Because often, as a body, you're asked, well, who do you represent? Who are you speaking for? And if you don't have all those people willing to be part of that, even if it's just a small thing, then it is a bit harder. So that's one thing I'm hoping in 2020 is we see that movement back, I suppose, in knowing that together we're stronger. And that we can all collaborate, all the different professional bodies can collaborate to a certain degree and figure out, well, what can we agree upon and what, don't we agree upon, and where is the common ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because when you speak to government, and I did a lot of speaking to government on behalf of our beauty industry community just through COVID, the first thing they said was, how many people are you representing? And it wasn't what quality are you representing, or what are their skills, or what's their turnover, or anything like that. As soon as I said we've got 7,000 people in our community, they were like, okay, we're listening, and that for us was just a huge, kind of weight to be able to say, we have so many people who are backing us. So I really love when people back associations like yourself, because it does mean the world. And, the key thing that you've said there is that you don't have to be a member of one association. If all of the associations collaborated together and everyone just supported everyone, that weight to government is so much more heavy and so much more loud that the government will start listening. That's what we need. We need them to not call us beauticians anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's just outdated. So it surprises me how old some of this legislation is. And some of it hasn't changed since the 60s, so they don't know what else to call it, because it's written down that way, and even though in their everyday language they wouldn't say that, when it comes to something like these sorts of things where it's legislated, or you've got public health orders, that's kind of what exists. So it's time to change. Things need to change. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there is a lot of confusion around, it's not anyone's fault, or there's no one really to blame. I mean, even as you were talking about before, laser, when it comes to IPL, for example, you need a certificate to operate in one state and you don't need a certificate to operate in another. You can buy something off Alibaba, for goodness sake,
Exactly.
I mean, how do people actually know what they're doing, and what kind of steps should they be taking to make sure that they are operating within the correct guidelines if they don't know any better.
Yeah, we've always taken the point of view, and it happened when we were making that transition, I suppose, to what is a dermal clinician. If there's somebody in your field that performs that particular procedure or technique that has a level of knowledge in doing that, then they're often held as the benchmark for how that's done. So, my advice is to look to that and try and make sure that you're adhering to that benchmark or those best practice standards. So as you mentioned, because unfortunately there isn't a national standard. In some places you do need to have things, and some places you don't. But so maybe look at the most rigorous one, because then at least you're doing everything you possibly can, to meet that standard. So for us, there are a few things that are sort of emerging. I suppose they're not standards at the moment. They're not benchmarks, but that we're hoping they will be. There are quite a lot of concerns with skin cancers going undetected, and those sorts of things as well. And some of these come from things like not test patching, and not getting skin cancer screenings before having laser procedures. So we're things that we're hoping that will become a benchmark. So I think that's something that people can be doing, just to make sure they're doing everything they possibly can. There are lots of places now, especially if you're not sure about that sort of thing. Dermoscopy is something that can be taught to most people that have a background in skin. I think a lot of those, professional bodies are sort of more leaning towards it's better that more people know about it than not. But if you don't, then always refer to somebody who can. Of course, keeping your knowledge current. So making sure that you do your laser safety, and you do that regularly, because things do change, standards do change. Making sure that you're doing all those sorts of things. And I think, we put up something recently on one of our blogs that you sometimes just have to ask yourself, if I'm doing a procedure, what is the worst that can go wrong if I'm doing this? And am I actually qualified to handle the complication that happens? So if, eye damage were happening because we're treating too close to the eyes, am I qualified to manage that? And if I'm not, then I probably shouldn't be doing that particular procedure. So I think a lot of it comes back to those sorts of things as well, and just making sure, is it in my scope of practice, or like you said, am I just excited because I know how to use the technology, but can I handle all the things that go wrong? So there's a few things. I think, maintaining education and, making sure that you're getting the best quality equipment that you can, and that, you're doing all the right things in terms of being insured and all that sort of stuff, which I'm sure everyone is. But my advice is always just to look at those people that do that procedure that are, the most qualified, because if something does go wrong, you're going to be held to that standard.
Yeah, for sure. And I do see sometimes, even in our community, people saying, I haven't studied for 15, 20, sometimes 30 years, and then asking a question subsequently. And I think, oh my goodness, you haven't studied in that long, which is great because you're experienced, but things change so rapidly in our industry. It does make me very cautious, well, what are you doing? You have to keep up those skills. And we were saying before that education is so important to you. What are your tips for continuing that education? I mean, we can't all just be cowgirls and cowboys and just think, well, I've got my qualification now, I know everything, I'm just going to go out there and keep treating and I'm experienced, because somebody who's fresh out of beauty school or, dermal therapy college is actually probably in a better place education wise than somebody who has been in the industry for such a long time.
Yeah, well, things do change really quickly. Just to give an example, one of the areas I'm really passionate about is lymphatic health. And I think about 5 or 7 years ago, we had to throw out all the textbooks because everything that had been written has been completely superseded in terms of we understand how it works. And so, things do change. So I guess in terms of, what should we do though? So that again, you're speaking to somebody who's like a self-confessed nerd. So for me, it is, I get bored and I end up looking for what else can I do or what's the next thing. But on an everyday level, I just set aside time, every Sunday or whatever day of the week. And, I get some journal articles and I read those and I make sure that, I'm keeping up with certain things. But, there's always a place for things like your professional organisations and associations, because they will often keep you updated. So if things are changing, especially really important things, like if there are updates on regulation or if there are updates on, technologies or scope of practice or discussions on those sorts of things, they're going to keep you up to date with that. But, I think it's just having that thirst for more. And, there's always something else to study, whether it be doing short courses, to keep up with techniques or whether it be, your webinars and things like that are going to be, hearing from experts, or, if you haven't been studying for a while, or if maybe recency to practice is something as well. We've stepped out for a while and had children and want to come back in. Those sorts of things, those networks are a really great way for, reinserting yourself as well, and getting some mentoring and, seeing what other people are doing and how they're doing it as well, so that you're not just going back into what you did without being a bit more up to date, I suppose.
Yeah, and lots of informal education almost as well. I mean, I know you guys do pre-COVID and hopefully post, some pretty fantastic events. You've got lots of blog pieces going on. Yeah, conferences. Yeah, there's so much out there. I mean, not that I'm saying everybody who hasn't studied in such a long time needs to go back and complete their whole, diploma all over again. That's not what I'm saying. But informal education, I guess, just upskilling and keeping up to date with the industry knowledge and trends and insights that are coming out is more so what I'm kind of referring to as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, as I said, it's just such a rapidly changing industry. And like I said, the whole face of it's changed since I've been here. From, when I first came in, IPL was something that was really seen as being really, quite out there and really Star Wars. And now, there's so many different, you can hardly keep up with it in terms of what's coming out and how it's going to be used and what's going to be happening next. And so I think the informal is something we should be doing all the time anyway, and I think the formal is something to actually probably be more valued than it is, especially when it comes to scope of practice, because it really does help to define where, what sort of things you should be doing. And sometimes even short courses aren't enough for the breadth of what it is we want to do. So, when we're doing a short course, it really is a snapshot of a particular very small window of what it is we might want to do. So sometimes we need to acknowledge what we need to do more than that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So big year 2020, there was lots of voices, lots of voice to government, lots of phone calls on your end, I'm sure. What does 2021 look like for the ASDC?
Well, we've been working towards becoming a self-regulating profession by 2024. That was an aim that we set ourselves in 2019, and we're halfway there in terms of reaching our milestones. So for us, even 2020, there were some really good things to celebrate even that came out of that. We had already, before COVID just hit, we had been accepted as an affiliate member into the Allied Health Professions of Australia, which was a bit of a big deal for us, because we're then being recognised as being evidence-based and the minimum standard of university qualified allied health professionals. And that again gives us, a really great collaborative or network of other allied health professions, and also a bit more of a voice too in terms of being in government and things as well. So that was something that was really great for us. And now we're looking towards making sure there's a lot more guidelines, I suppose, written documentation and things that are there to support people in the industry. So working a lot more on that in 2021 as well. And we'll continue on our path and, hopefully be fully fledged self-regulating profession and registered as well practitioners in by 2024. Yeah. And so there's too many projects really. So it's like one thing, we're always looking for more members. We're also looking for more active members as well that, can contribute, because everyone has there's such a rich diversity of knowledge and expertise out there. And it's something that people can always contribute that as well.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully this podcast episode can continue to, be a voice for you guys and build some brand awareness. And for anyone who's listening out there who's interested, head on through to the show notes and they can click through and see what ASDC is all about. Jen, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
I just loved how Jennifer's pathway of traveling through retail, hospitality, and architecture before entering her into the industry of which she is so passionate about now just goes to show that the pathway to success is never linear. Excitedly, the ASDC really showed up for our clinicians in 2020 through everything that our industry went through, and it gives me so much excitement to hear about the steps and systems that they're putting into place moving forward into 2021. To find out more about Jen or the ASDC, head through to the show notes. Us, of course, well, you'll find us on all of the platforms at Beauté Industry, and you can keep up with myself over at Tamara Reid Beauté. Until next time, stay connected.